This podcast is presented by Castrol Edge Euro, the #1 brand recommended by technicians in Europe. Did you know that almost 50% of European vehicles in Canada come factory filled with Edge Euro? Offer better oil. Offer your customer Castrol Edge Euro. Questions? Contact your local auto parts distributor, or Wakefield Territory Sales Manager, or customer service at 1-800-268-5339. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ross. Now, the issues surrounding hiring technicians is nothing new. I mean, it's kind of a well-trodden path that every shop owner has talked about, the difficulty in getting technicians in, well-trained technicians, the technicians that work with their business and their culture. But maybe, just maybe, you should be looking for tomorrow's owner instead of tomorrow's technician. And here to talk about the influx of younger business owners and future business owners is Murray Voth from RPM Training, who has, welcome to the podcast again, Murray.
Yeah, hi, Andrew.
Who has noticed something in his training courses that should give us all a little bit of pause for thought. Well, talk about that a little bit, Murray. What are you seeing in your when you look out over the group of people in your meetings?
Well, let me go backwards just one step, Andrew. As you and I have discussed and probably done some episodes about the number of older shop owners leaving, selling, not having anything to sell, auctioning off, walking away. A lot of people not taking our training and our coaching. A little bit of a somber conversation. Recently, just finished a course here in Toronto and had a fantastic group of folks in there with 4 or 5 younger shop owners, 3 or 4 that just had met me on Facebook and signed up. And Andrew, I have hope again for our industry. We're
Yay!
talking, yes, we're talking about, let's just say mid 30s to 40-ish. These are all, except there was one exception who did not come from industry like that as a technician, came more from the parts side and entrepreneurial side, became an entrepreneur in the business, but technician, worked hard, grew capital, bought a business, started a business. One of them just expanded, bought a property and expanded. Another one is looking desperately for an expansion because of the growth. They are adapting to technologies. They're using some of the latest software interactions with clients. They're beginning to integrate AI into some of their processes, and so very, very encouraged about the opportunity that these young people have, and I think they're all going to have a really, really good future. So, which opens up a whole bunch of things that we can talk about for existing shop owners, older shop owners, and then I have some advice for some of these younger shop owners that we can tag on towards the end of our conversation here.
Sure, of course. Yeah. Now, I can speak, specific examples local to us here in Sudbury. I won't get into the specifics of the example, but I know absolutely that there's one young person who had been to a couple of other trades, and then had committed to the automotive trade in no small part because he identified an opportunity, or was identified by a shop owner as somebody who could grow into the business and take over the business in sort of 2-3 years, and has done that. This is now in the past, and that was really a big attractor for that individual, and you can see why. I mean, do you want to work always for somebody else? And some people are fine with that, but if you've got an entrepreneurial mindset, the aftermarket, might just be for you, right?
Mm. Yes. We're seeing already in my circle, Andrew, of people that we coach, um, one, two, three, 4 owners going into semi-retirement. I'll explain what they're doing now, and key employees have bought their shops. Most of the scenarios are a technician, did a share purchase, got in, in a stepped way. We have a service advisor, service manager, and a technician buying a large location. Plans were made. It took time to do this transition. So the one transition was a 2 year. Most of them are usually a 4 or 5 share buyout process. The last one that just ended December 31st was 7 years. And the one guy with the 7 years, he says he's off into the sunset, and his last post on Facebook was from Mexico. So we'll see how long that lasts. Two of the others are teaching part-time at our colleges.
That's
Um,
excellent.
they've gone back to give back some knowledge and stuff, and still having lots of their personal time to themselves. So the opportunity for existing shop owners who are thinking, and maybe we shouldn't say older, Andrew. Let's not assume that. A shop owner who is looking to get the value out of their existing company, getting some money out of it, having somebody take over it who already probably knows the client database, has already worked with his team. And there are some legally creative accounting ways of having key employees buy in. And I was just sent a message by somebody in my life that there is actually some federal funding available for businesses selling to employees to help facilitate that. Just got it like 2 days ago, and I haven't even finished reading the whole article about the
That's amazing.
details, but there's some opportunities there for existing people. So before you get too tired, ladies and gentlemen, because I've got one that has joined my coaching who is burnt out. He's crispy, and he
You make
wants
your bacon super crispy. Well, there you
right,
go. Right? Yeah.
and he wants out, but he's probably, a couple of years away from that, being able to do that with a reasonable
Right.
saleability.
Yeah. You don't want to sell on the
The,
emotion
the
of
books are the books are
right?
are decent, but we have to normalize the books. There's some personal stuff in there, and there's a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
But
You know, clean it
joining
up,
another
right?
group
There's a way
of
to do it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he's got hope. He's joined a peer of other shop owners. He's got hope. We're gonna uncrisp him and do that. But so the idea is before you get there, is start talking about this because uh, several things, right? It takes a while to normalize your statement. If you have accumulated some cash in the company, you have to, find the legal ways to defer those taxes and get that money out of that company before you sell it. There is a capital gains exemption that a really good accounting firm can help you benefit from, and there has to be plans with that. The shareholder agreements that have to be drawn up with these employees that are buying, choosing the right people. Are they going to be okay running a business, having them learn the training and stuff like that?
Yeah.
But it's great. I mean, like I said, 4 to 5 people just in the last year that we've been walking alongside with this process. And the good news for me is I'm keeping their new owners
Yeah.
in the
Well,
coaching, right? They're
which
staying.
is great. So just
Yeah.
to kind of reiterate, there's a couple of key points on this from the standpoint of the existing owner is in preparing to exit the business, whatever that might look like, is obviously talking to the proper experts to prepare your books, to prepare your business financially and yourself, emotionally and psychologically for this. You might actually have to remove yourself bit by bit over time just to give yourself a soft landing, but also to identify who those buyers might be, and to I know from talking to yourself and others in the past, always have a couple of options, right? You may
Yes.
want to identify, yes, this person in my business is actually going to be the person we've talked. Also a good point. Talk to the person. Don't just identify them and assume. You may think, and maybe it's a family member even, but you should not assume on these things. You should have these conversations often and not have it once, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, 2 years ago I talked to you and you said you wanted the business. Like, well, that was 2 years ago. Now I've got 7 kids and I want to move to Florida. You know, uh,
Yeah.
so make sure that you're and have some options in mind, because it might just be somebody else on the open market, as it were.
Chris, yes. And
So
there
you do
are.
those things, but from the standpoint of somebody who is uh, looking at the business or is beginning in the ownership pathway, what they may not be an owner yet, what would you say are some of the key things that they should consider upon, maybe they're the person getting the conversation. Hey, the shop owner just talked to me. Boy, oh boy, what do I need to think about here? This is a big deal. I've been a tech, but I'm still young. Do I need to do this? It's a big commitment. What
Yeah.
does it really mean? And like, am I right for it? And how do you tell these things? And what would you advise them to think about?
The first thing that comes to mind, and this is, I don't know how I'm going to phrase this. I'll just say it. The ones that I see do well at it generally come from families that not necessarily entrepreneurial, some entrepreneurial families, but families with parents that were professionals, families that talked about um, society, business, law, politics, right? Conversations, a broad experience growing up in a home. Not necessarily the owners are not necessarily gone beyond high school. They've got their trade ticket, right? They haven't gone on to get university or degrees necessarily, but they have this broader view of the world. And so when you go into business, actually, now I know I'm going to answer this because I'm talking to some young entrepreneurs this next week. Is you have to have the ability to speak with people. You have to have the ability to talk, to speak, and communicate, to adapt to different styles of communication with different people. So that would be the public, your clients, that would be your suppliers, right? Learning how to negotiate with people, right? The other part is this is probably the hardest part for any business owner of any kind. I don't care whether you're a small shop or you're the largest wholesale distributor in the world. Uh, Employee management interviewing is fraught with challenges and difficulty, right? But the ability to be comfortable with speaking and communicating sets you up, all right? The ability to network, not necessarily professional networking, but when you walk into a group of people, are you somewhat comfortable to shake hands and say hi to some people that you may not know that well? I'm not saying that as an introverted or a shy person, you can't be a business owner. We have lots of clients like that as well. But if you want to really ramp it up, the ability to communicate would probably be the biggest thing. And so, how do you learn how to communicate? Well, believe it or not, read books gives you
Right.
vocabulary, or listen to books, right?
Yeah.
Does that. Understanding basic business concepts, right? I've known of at least a half a dozen young people in my life, usually kids of owners I've been working with. And the kids have gone and done either a 1 year, 2 year diploma at their local college in basic business stuff, coursing, right? A couple of them actually do degrees. Some come back to take over the business. Some decide they like the professions and go off, right? So it's having those conversations that will help the younger person, be ready to do that. And just the idea of, you know, thinking about risk, thinking about your time. You don't be a 9 to 5. If you're a person who likes your day to end at 5 and not take anything home, you might not be a shop owner. I mean, even though we as business owners, you and I, Andrew, and the people we work with, we learn skills and we learn a bit ways to leave our work in our office. There are times where, we wake up and we're solving a problem at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Um,
100%. Yeah.
and if you're,
And I will say that there's a big difference from where if I was, a person considering buying the business that I work in, and that was an owner who was on top of things and could, in fact, go on vacation and was, left at a reasonable hour, and let's just say, I mean, I know a lot of them. They go home, they do a lot of their bookkeeping and whatnot at home on the weekend, sure, but you might not see that if you're working in the business. I'm not saying anybody hides it, but also I think it's important to understand that that business owner has got to that point, and that you, as somebody new coming in, is going to be drinking from a fire hose for a while, and so there will be none of that going home at
yeah,
reasonable hours for at least a little while, until you figure out all of these things that you and I have talked about a lot about. Which things can I put on autopilot? Which things can I
yeah,
delegate? Because you're going to want to learn all of it to
yeah,
understand all of it, maybe
yeah,
for at least a couple of years. So it's going
yeah,
to be a couple of years of kind of working, not
yeah,
necessarily in the bay all the time, hope, but certainly the business will never be far from your mind, and you're going to
yes.
have things come up. I do remember starting this business, and at one point, a few months into it, suddenly sitting bolt up at 3 o'clock in the morning going, oh God, I forgot to talk to Canada Post. Like I need to have my contract with Canada Post to mail the magazines.
Yeah.
And it just, like, I knew it needed to be done. It was just like, oh my God. And I had to find out how to do that, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And because no, I didn't have a playbook. I had to go and find out. I mean, it wasn't hard to do. I mean, they were in the business of selling their service. So you find through, the wonderful internet, and you phone people and they talk to you and they do it, but you still have to do it, right? And you
Yeah.
can't hide from this stuff that's so important to your business, whether it's
Yeah.
this or whether it's your utility bill, whether it's your garbage pickup or your uniform,
Yeah,
service, if you have one of those, and all of these things that maybe the previous owner, has kind of taken as a matter of course, that will all be new to you. This
exactly.
doesn't mean it's not worth the 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 journey.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it is, but boy, but
Well,
it's still a journey, right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. And then the other piece of advice that I could pass on that actually came up in this week, because I always start off my session after all the introductions with asking everybody in the room what is one thing that they're proud of or thankful for. It's a brain setting practice to get
Yep.
people in I'm already a good person. I have something to be proud of. I'm not a bad shop coming for training. I'm a good shop coming to get better, right?
Right.
And and a common theme that came up, because these were most of these people were new to me. I had some people that were coming for a refresher, some people had sent some staff, right? But the common theme was, in the case of one, the couple was opened the business together, right? The married couple. In the other cases, they had the support of their partner, right?
Right.
They are co-parents. The other partner's got a job and a profession, and they had the support of that person. They had talked about this and the challenge that it's going to be, and that person was behind them. They got that. So the spouse kind of has to have an entrepreneurial mindset, even if they may not participate in the business at all,
Yeah,
right?
they
But
have to be
they
behind
have to
you.
need to understand that
Yeah.
because it's happened where I've worked with people where the spouse resents the owner for having chosen to go in there. And I tell you, business is hard enough to come home to somebody who resents you for taking this business, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be hard.
That
That
would
would
be
be really
yeah,
hard.
absolutely.
So,
That that
so those are
that
two
makes a
key
lot
things.
of sense.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
and you can understand the especially if things get tight on the financial front,
yeah. Hmm.
and the questions can get asked, why are you working so hard on this thing? It's not really making any money, and like, why don't you do this? And you sound like it sounds crazy. Why are you doing it this way? And
Yeah. Yeah.
and you need them to have faith. I think you need them to be frank too, and be able to have frank discussions. I
Oh
do
yeah.
believe that, on the flip side, that if you are an owner and your significant other, I'm not assuming men and women here, that you need to be frank about the finances
Yes.
too. Like, be
Yeah.
real about it. Say, like, no, I think it's
Yeah.
going well, but it's a bit tough right now, and I'm not really bringing any money, so we need to, like, don't be booking any vacations.
Yeah. Right.
Big dollar
Exactly.
vacations, and we're gonna have to put the couch on hold, or whatever the deal is,
Yeah.
because right now
Yeah.
things are really crunching, and I don't know right now.
Yeah.
So being honest about the general picture of the business, not hiding it, and I also believe that the significant other should not be allowed to run away from that either. They should.
Correct. Yeah.
Don't let them get away. Don't let them, like, poop. Be like, I don't
Yeah.
want to know.
Don't.
No, you need to
Yeah.
know. Everybody needs to
Yeah.
know.
Don't let them default on you.
No, no.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
had, and I don't get into this too much, but there were a number of businesses that I had contact with in my community when I lived in Toronto, and there usually, if it's a partnership, and you would have one who was, the, so I'll call it like the front of store person,
yeah.
very much out there, trying to make the business going, and somebody in the back of store or back of business who was
Yeah.
taking care of the books and the finances and not sharing. And so the
Yes.
person at the front is like, well, I'm selling all this stuff. And then the person in the back going, we're losing tens of thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
and then doesn't say anything to each other, or refuses, or lets that front of store person not be aware of it. And then,
Yeah.
you get a few months or a year down the road, and now everybody owes everybody all kinds of money, and it's just a horrible situation.
Yeah.
That is not a situation you want to get to with your significant other or your household. This is a great business to be in,
It is.
but it is not passive income.
No. Yeah. So I've got two pieces of advice here before we run out of
Before we run
time.
out of time, yeah.
Yeah. One piece that you remind me of with your question is what I've also seen over my years is an owner who's might be getting a little tired or is been running through some staff and can't find the right person, and they find a great person, who's really diligent and working hard, and they've barely hired them. They're not even finished probation, and they're so impressed with this person, and they're so desperate. They say, you look like somebody who could buy this company, right? So I'm in a couple of years we can talk about it. This person works hard, things get better, and then the owner doesn't want to sell it. Now this person leaves because they're upset
Yeah.
because you didn't actually carry it was a bribe. Or you know what, I can't afford to pay you a lot now, but you'll be able to buy the company someday and then you can make more money. I've probably seen that a dozen times in my 20-year career
Yeah.
where
That's
you
not fair.
promise something that you can't do out of your own desperation, and the person is naive enough to believe you. They continue to dig in and work hard, and then it
Yeah.
doesn't work out. Or the
Yeah. That's
person
not
looks
fair.
like they're a
That's
good
not fair.
worker, and then the 90-day probation is over, and they go back to whatever stay, right? So that's one thing to make be careful of. And then lastly, for the younger shop owners that I'm so encouraged by and so enthusiastic about, is for all of them listening, is to do the work of thinking, starting with the end in mind, so that you don't end up where some of the older shop owners are right now. So, in other words, your succession plan, whether you keep the shop or keep it for 50 years, whatever, it doesn't matter, but having your affairs in order now so that there can be in order later on, right? So
Right.
things like key person life insurance, the premiums are way cheaper now than they are later, right?
Right.
Um, Things like a will of your own, your family will, your business will, a new concept I've been introduced to in the last year, that you can actually have something called a business will. It doesn't look the same, but having, again, back to the where the rubber meets the road, your SOPs, standard operating procedures, onboarding processes, hiring processes, so that there's a little bit more consistency. I don't want to use the word automation, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you hire an employee,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Get some
yeah,
processes in place and you can have those conversations. But boy, oh boy, it's so encouraged to hear, having at least a number of young entrepreneurial owners. I'm going to say starting off on the right foot. If they're
totally.
already in the training, they haven't
Yes.
waited. They haven't waited until they're in crisis mode.
Exactly. Well, the good news is there's a lot of good content out there, and thanks to you, Andrew, for contributing to that content getting out there. These people came relatively well rounded, and the first day was, you're confirming that I'm doing it right. The second day was, those are some good ideas that I want. And the third day was, oh, I never thought of that. Those are some good things I want to add, right? So it was
Great.
it was a
That's
nice
great.
foundation that they came with. Oh yeah, I'm physically tired, Andrew, but man, I'm emotionally, this week just rocked.
That's fantastic.
So
Well,
yeah, it was good.
what a great. You have my permission to take the rest of the week off. It is a Friday afternoon, I might say.
Thanks, boss.
Yeah, no problem. But no, it's very encouraging, and yeah, there's a few things to do, but it's a great business and great to hear that so many young entrepreneurs are finding their way, and I think we can all be encouraged by that. And for those older owners who are looking for uh, pathway to exit their business, that might be certainly nothing exactly new. Uh, but have you thought about merging the search for tomorrow's owner with search for tomorrow's technician in
Yes.
a real considered way, not jumping the gun and every new tech that walks into the apprentice that walks in the door being, hey, you could buy my business. That sounds a little desperate, but there may be a pathway for everybody there, and everybody wins. Great, thanks, Murray.
Thanks, Andrew.
Onward and upward. We will see you all next time on the Great Canadian Aftermarket Podcast. There is opportunity in the aftermarket. Take care.
You're listening to the Great Canadian Aftermarket Podcast, brought to you by the publishers of Indie Garage and Jobber Nation. Connect with us online at indiegarage.ca and jobbernation.ca, a brand of Chat Integrated Media.